Girls, your attention, please.
Hello and welcome back inside the Part for May. For podcast number 935, this is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
A.K.A. Negative Camber. You know what we do on race weekends.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do. But before talking about a race, I have to go get somebody that actually understands racing, and you know what that means.
Rick from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charsley, the International.
It's Paul Charsley. Paul, how you doing?
You know, life's been better. I was up late watching the Blues throw away heartbreaking.
Brutal.
That was brutal.
I mean, congratulations
two goals
to
up
Winnipeg
with two.
Jets. But
Yeah, Winnipeg's great.
Yeah.
They're my second favorite team because I did I went to Winnipeg once and I was doing a Viper ride along. We gave people rides in these Vipers and stuff, and I just kind of fell in love with the little place. You know, it's a cute little Canadian town, and but I wanted to beat them, and didn't do it. We blew it with 2 minutes to go.
Rough.
Yikes.
So rough.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And you know that goalie for Winnipeg had been pulled like 3 games, in a row, and then comes to overtime, and he's like the world's best goalie ever. It's like what? That's crazy. How can that be? I know.
Oh well, they earned it. They
did.
It,
Yeah,
so
congratulations. They got their hands full with Dallas Stars. Dallas looks brutal.
For sure.
Yeah, they got their hands full. But, Paul, I would like to sit here and offer platitudes to the Blues and yourself. I don't have time for any of that. We've got a lot to cover in this race. It was action-packed, eventful, a crazy sprint weekend, and we've got a lot to cover. So let's jump into what then became the 2025 Miami Grand Prix. Some people I saw referring to is as the Monaco of America, or in Southern parlance, the Monaco of America.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Have they changed Monaco's name to?
Yeah, I don't know.
Monaco? No, okay.
Monaco.
Just making sure I don't have to change my maps.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a fun race and all, but it's not Monaco.
No, it's definitely
Monaco's a Monaco. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Paul, let's do a little formation lap. Let's do some table setting. What were we all talking about, looking at, focusing on, heading into Sunday's race? Well, let's start at the top. I think Oscar Piastri's championship lead and the pressure is being the hunted now instead of the hunter. I think Oscar entered Miami Grand Prix in the Drivers' Championship lead, holding a 10-point advantage over Lando Norris, had 3 victories on the trot, looking for his 4th victory in 6 races. So the big question was, will Oscar maintain his composure, or will the pressure from Norris and Verstappen disrupt this momentum? His P4 qualifying result, due to a lack of execution in his mind, that added a lot of intrigue to the race. Wondering, okay, he's down in 4th. Remember, we talked about last week, Paul, we said that if for McLaren, the real day is qualifying. So watch qualifying, because the battle between Lando and Oscar is really qualifying. And I thought, Lando got the measure of him in qualifying and starts in P2, and Oscar down in P4. Can he make a go of it, right? So that was one of the big talking points heading into this weekend about Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, he's... Don't you feel like he's filling all those little voids?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a big Oscar fan for a long time. Could see, the massive potential, but it didn't mean like he showed up every week and performed as well as he can. Certainly in a race pace kind of thing. But boy, composure is his middle name. I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
If there's anything he has, it's a lot of that.
It's one of those things that you bring up a really good point, because you're a professional driver and I'm not, but. It's the details, right, Paul? It's those small incremental racecraft details you could see develop in his racecraft. And you saw that with Lewis Hamilton. You saw that with Sebastian. You saw that with Fernando. You saw that with, name a
Max. Yeah.
Max. I mean, Max, started off pretty ragged, right? But you saw that racecraft developed, and it was all those small gaps, those small details that he's filling in that I think maybe Lando's still struggling with. So when you look at Piastri heading into this weekend, all eyes were on him to see if he could make a charge from P4. The other talking point was really just the overall McLaren performance. Do they have dominant pace and title ambition? Certainly, we feel like heading into the season, they were probably the team to beat. But as they head into Miami, they had a 77-point lead in the Constructors' Championship, despite Norris and Piastri faltering in Q3, and they started in P2 and P4 on the grid. Their car showed not only one-lap performance, but I think most people felt heading into the race, Paul, that their race pace was going to be there. Hotter temperatures. They're doing something magic with their tires and their ability to retain that window and that grip level. The car's pace, particularly in those environments, seems to position them as the favorites. And I think even Max, after qualifying, said, over one lap, it was a really good lap. He was really excited, but, the race is the race. And I think even Max knew he might be on the back foot as far as race pace goes.
Yeah, I think for sure Max knew. I mean, the teams aren't blind to what McLaren are doing during the practices, etc., and they know this was a strong track last year.
Yeah,
it's going to be a strong track this year. They didn't change the world for their car, so right. I think the drivers were very confident as well.
Yeah, I think so. More confidence in Williams' weekend. Impressive qualifying, and they're really emerging as a midfield powerhouse. With Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon securing P6 and P7 in qualifying respectively. If development has stopped on this car for 2025, Williams' ability to maintain this form against Haas, Aston, Alpine, the RBs, it's going to be crucial, making this strategic flexibility a key storyline in how Williams defends that strong fifth place run in the Constructors' Championship, but they look good hanging into this race.
They do. It is a fine balance, right? When do you discontinue looking at but how much money is that fifth place payout versus seventh place? What's more important to you, having the money in the bank, or stop progressing on next year's car and hoping you come out with something very, very solid? But everything points towards Williams with their backing, with the people they've got in place, with their drivers, that they're definitely confident and have a real big plan to move even further up than they are now.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. Then the other talking point heading into the race, Max Verstappen's pole position and then Red Bull's response in the race. Max claimed a stunning pole position, edging out Norris by 0.06 of a second, despite the challenging sprint. He finished down in 17th with a penalty for the sprint. But however, Red Bull's race pace lagged behind McLaren's, in recent days, as shown earlier in the weekend with that 0.6 deficit in Miami. So had they found something between the sprint race and qualifying that was kind of a magic setup to Verstappen's car that found the lost pace that they showed earlier in the weekend. Then you also have that Verstappen's wheel-to-wheel battles with the McLarens, in particular Lando, and his aggressive defending in past races. So that was a focal point, everyone wondering what would happen in turn one. And then ultimately, could he convert pole into a win, or will McLaren's long-run pace simply overwhelm him?
Yeah, I mean, you could never count against Max. I mean, his pure brilliance showed in the qualifying, but there's only so much he can do in a car, at least at this race, that has that kind of deficit. But he's still doing magical things in that car, even though he didn't even end up on the podium at this point. He's way overachieving on that car. Yeah,
for sure. Also, Ferrari struggle looked really on the back foot all weekend. They faced a challenging weekend. Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton qualifying P7, P12 respectively, just really highlighted the lack of pace they were having moving into the weekend. Hamilton, his move to Ferrari is yet to really yield results, and he had a tough qualifying, leaving him down to start in P12. Ferrari's ability to avoid strategic missteps and strategy calls and to capitalize on, on any of the chaos around him. Really, that was a talking point. Some people feeling, and me, this is the team I like, felt like, they'd gotten a little sharper with their strategy of late. And so felt the last thing I thought would happen is what happened, right? So, so that was a talking point. Also, saw little socials. Some people questioning. I know. Some people, these are fans, of course, questioning Lewis Hamilton because it's not delivering results. And I mentioned, and some people saying, "Hey, look, is his off-track activities getting in the way?" Because Hamilton's got a commitment to co-chair the Met Gala the day after the race. He's all about the Met Gala, right? And so people said, I don't know, maybe he's more focused on the Met Gala and stuff he's got going on, and that's why it's not developing results. But I think there's bigger issues. I'm not either.
Yeah, I think Lewis has always had other things going on.
Yeah,
it's kind of part of his preparation. Honestly, he needs to have something outside the sport to get away, like we all do, so he can come back sharper and ready to rock. Unlike Max Verstappen, who literally jumps from the real car to the simulator, then maybe he goes to sleep. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, he won't sleep now. He's a new dad.
True.
Welcome to the every 2 hours. Yeah. And then another huge talking point heading into the weekend, Kimi Antonelli, Paul, rookie brilliance. Mercedes 18-year-old Kimi Antonelli continues to impress, securing P3 in qualifying, a stunning pole position for the sprint race, making him the youngest ever F1 pole sitter in any format, with George Russell down in P5. So Mercedes seriously thinking, Kimi's rising to the top, and we need to figure out how to capitalize on Antonelli's speed and challenge for the podium here, because he's starting in P3, right? Antonelli's performance under pressure, his battle with the McLarens and Verstappen were certainly a major storyline. How will the young driver, he got hung out to drive in the sprint, Paul.
For sure.
Yeah, he learned a harsh lesson in that one.
Yeah.
So the next question is, come Sunday, starting P3, Max behind him, that kind of thing. How's this all going to play out? Or with fast cars behind him, how's this all going to play out? Could he handle that pressure? So that was certainly a talking point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kimi's quite the driver. He's, as you texted to me, he's got something special. He for sure does, because he's got speed, and we saw him the first time, and he flew off the road at Monza.
Right.
But since then, very, very impressive.
Very impressive. Yeah, very impressive. It's no wonder Mercedes and Toto's excited about him.
He hasn't had a lot of good luck, though, has he, really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. Although I did a search just to figure out what his strike rate was on his win strike rate in his juniors. It's super high.
Yeah.
Very high.
Not surprised.
Like 30% or so. It's really high. So you could see. Midfield battles, certainly a lot of best of the rest conversations. The regulations got everything a lot tighter. So we're talking about, at the front, you got McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari. But what's really heating up is that midfield battle. Williams, Haas, the RBs, Aston Martin, Alpine, Kicks, Sauber, all of them in contention trying to fight in that midfield. And boy, there is so little to play in that midfield. Obviously, also virtual safety cars impacted this race several occasions, benefited Lando Norris on Saturday, and the sprint benefited him last year for the win. So certainly that was a talking point heading into this. And then really Miami's overtaking opportunities, Paul, and track challenges. They've got that. It's a 19-turn layout around the Hard Rock Stadium. Overtaking opportunities, turn 11, 17. Heavy braking zones could yield some results there. Got that triple apex left-hander, turns 6 through 8. Pretty tough on the tires. They got that long straight after turn 8. And the straight line speed cars are going to love that. Some DRS zones. How do you feel about that track?
I don't really like it, but at least it does transfer to some dicing. I mean, there's no turn there that I'd say, wow, I'd love to drive that turn.
Yeah.
Right? But the layout with tight turns leading onto big straights leading into braking zones is going to incite at least some passing opportunities. Some of the passing opportunities are a bit, where it's curving in on the braking zone, making it a little harder that way. But there's enough. And we certainly saw some side-by-side action, which made it exciting. So I think the racing within the track is pretty decent. I'm just not that thrilled by any turn, particularly on the track.
Yeah. Yep. Another thing interesting about it is they jammed 275,000 people in there over the race weekend. Oof. And I thought that's a lot of people in a consolidated area. But if you really consider that, though, they need to figure out how to get more people in there. Because if you figure COTA was near 400,000, British Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's a longer track. Right, it's twice as long, isn't it? COTA is twice as long.
Yeah.
I don't know how you pack more people in.
I don't know how you would, but boy, if 2 3/4 is as much as you can get, given 400,000 British, 400,000 COTA,
yeah,
I'm sure they'd like to figure it out,
Yeah, just charge more for the tickets, as they do.
As they do, yeah. Right. Yeah. All right, let's jump in the race. That was what we were all focused on heading into the race. We'll jump into the race. Start off the sharp end with McLaren. Oscar Piastri, P1. Whew. How about that? Lando Norris, P2. Oscar delivered a masterclass, claimed his 4th victory of the 2025 season, Paul, solidifying his championship lead. And get this, he's now won more races than Lando Norris.
Yes, that's a big stat.
That's a big one. Now, for Lando fans, it's like, okay, it's all contextual, and you're right, it is. But, boy, you got to think that's got to be burning a hole in Lando, though.
It obviously is.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly.
He doesn't hide that inside.
No, he doesn't. Oscar started down P4, challenging qualifying for him. Swiftly got around Kimi Antonelli. He made a comment. Kimi didn't make it hard for him either, which was nice of him. Capitalizing on the fierce battle between Max and Lando, Piastri seized the lead. A bold move on Verstappen, forcing Max into a late-breaking situation, which, if I must say, is kind of a champion-style racecraft, if I'm honest. Yeah. He did it really well. Once in clean air, he managed his pace impeccably. Finished, 4 and some change seconds ahead of Lando Norris, the checkered flag. Just great strategic tire management, clean execution under pressure, highlighted his growth as a title contender, turning a tricky weekend really into a dominant triumph for him. Just a great race, great weekend.
Yeah, it's very impressive. I mean, obviously he got a gift at the beginning of the race from Lando.
Yep.
And, really it's a battle between Oscar and Lando at this point, I feel. I know Max is going to mix it up and be the spoiler every now and again, but I don't see, as the season goes on, I think both those guys are going to be, head and shoulders above everyone else in the championship hunt. So Oscar took the opportunity and ran with it and did a fantastic job, and his pass on Max, that's how you pass Max Verstappen. You don't pass Max Verstappen, you force Max to make a mistake, and then you just drive by him. But when you want to get in a wheel-to-wheel battle with Max, things don't turn out so well.
Yep.
And you can call that what you will. Well, that's just unfair. Max drives unfair. But, that's up to the stewards to decide at this point. And I think for the most part, he bends the rules as much as he can. But I think he reads the rules very tightly. And Max plays it, uses everything he's got and everything he can be given. And you've got to know that going in. So by Oscar forcing, he worked him over for a while.
He did.
And then he made that move where he got in the braking zone and moved Max even tighter to the inside.
Yeah.
In the dirtier ground. Also, Max knowing he's going to have to actually turn the wheel more, which means he has to slow down more, and forced him into braking too late. And just made it for an easy pass, and that's how you got to get by Max Verstappen. I said you don't want to get a wheel-to-wheel battles with him. It's just not going to work out well, as Lando finds out.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I thought was really impressive. And, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but the reality of how he set Max up and how he pressured Max and where he pressured Max was pretty key. and getting Max to make that mistake, and then capitalize on it.
And there's a twofold effect. You get by Max, you beat him, but now Max has started making mistakes while battling you.
Yes,
and that gets in Max's head.
Yep.
I mean, he's got a strong head, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
but
he does.
He feels like he has it over everybody on the grid.
Right.
I think Oscar is probably who he probably thinks is the closest to his talent at this point.
Yeah.
And
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think he probably sees Oscar as a real threat.
A real threat.
Yeah, for
really
sure.
So.
Lando Norris in P2. Lando basically secured P2 on a recovery drive, completing McLaren's 1-2 finish in Miami, starting alongside Verstappen. Norris engaged in an aggressive battle at turn 1, but a wide run dropped him down to P6. Undeterred, though, put his head down, engaged in a recovery drive, fought his way back through the field, had a decisive overtake eventually on Max in lap 18 at turn 11. Having ran off the track, though, he chose to relinquish that position, but it was temporary because he regained the composure of the position, repassed Max again, and took P2. Despite coming to P2, I will say that he looked more comfortable in the car this weekend, having out-qualified Oscar, having won the sprint, and I felt like the momentum was going pretty well for him in the weekend. But it comes down to him and Max, and I realize that it's easy for me to sit on a couch and say, you don't need to beat Max in turn 1. You need to beat him in the race. Yeah. And he'd have been far better checking up, still staying in second position, and then letting the strategy, potential rain, safety car, virtual safety car, whatever, let that race come to him and then take it to Max. And as we found out, they had plenty of pace. He would have got around him. Now, that's hindsight, right? Easy to say. I don't think the team knew just how dominant they were going to be in aggregate, but trying to pass Max on every turn 1 in these situations is not yielding results for him. The McLaren is fast, and it seems like he's not quite thinking long term here, Paul.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things going on here. I think he wants to show his prowess and his number 1 status at McLaren by making these big moves. Mm-hmm. That everyone's going to go, wow, look at how did he do that? He did that on Max Verstappen, but the results are the results, and that's really what means something.
Yeah.
So he's got to put that at the door. Even verbally, he said after the race, well, people say if I pass, I get a lot of flack. If I don't pass, I get a lot of flack. Why is that even in your head? Why is that in your vocabulary? Worrying about what other people think about how you should be driving on the track. You should be driving on the track the best you know and using your expertise to make the moves succinct and successful. So he's still in his head by my thoughts, by saying things like that.
Yeah.
And you got to know how to. As I said, go take a book out of Oscar's page and see how he approaches Max Verstappen, because I really think Lando just wants to beat him, like in a duel, and that's not going to win you a championship.
Yeah.
Because Max is going to you're both going to go off. You're going to go off a little bit. He was lucky not to damage his car twice. He was high-sided on the curbs, trying to pass Max, and that can completely destroy your day. We know how sensitive these cars are to floor damage, etc., etc. So you've got to keep your car in one piece as well, and you've got to make the move properly and think about it a bit harder. But he's a bit too instinctive, I think, at this point. I think he feels a little bit of pressure, certainly from behind. Would have been Piastri was right behind him. He's like, I got to get by Max so I can get between Oscar. As I said, that's who he's racing for the championship.
Correct.
So I just think he needs to get over it and approach it like a proper cold-blooded racing driver than how he's approaching it right now, which is a bit flamboyant and a bit careless, I would say.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think Lando as you say, he certainly shouldn't put himself in a position where he feels that, he's going to be judge of the court of public opinion.
Right.
I mean, who gives a damn what the public thinks? So the only person that should give a damn about how he races and when he chooses to pass is Lando. And that should be, as you pointed out, executed on Lando's terms based upon his experience in racecraft to make it effective, right? And in those cases, everybody was talking about turn one, Max and Lando, Max and Lando, turn one. The whole reason that's a talking point is because he continually tries to beat Max in turn one,
sucked into it,
and he gets sucked into it. So, that's the definition of of just constantly thinking you're going to get a different outcome. You're not. And I know he was frustrated after the race. He said, well, Max is just like, either make it or crash. And that's ruined his race too. And okay, well, if that's the way that is, Oscar showed you the way to handle a make it or crash kind of guy, right?
Right. Yeah,
and
you deal with them in every series, there's those people.
Yeah. So what Oscar did is hunted him down, measured him up, and put pressure, forcing him to go, as you said, tighter and tighter, on the inside, on the outside to cover the outside in the marbles, on the inside, and then all of a sudden, as you pointed out so succinctly, is he's gonna sharpen that corner, and if you're gonna do that, you got to brake sooner, And all of a sudden, he didn't brake. He braked too late and made that mistake. So Max does have, he's not inhuman. He is human.
No,
he can make mistakes, and Oscar found it, right?
Yep.
And I think Lando can too. I just think Lando, needs to get out of his own head on this and really think long game, and because he knows now out of Miami that they got the pace. They got the pace. So at this point, had he checked up and stayed in second place and then let the race come to him, he'd had Oscar behind him, right? And so, instead of handing Oscar the opportunity for the lead. So, tough weekend.
Yeah, it is. I'm not saying he can't do it. He's a very talented driver. He obviously showed his pace once he was in clean air. He could close in on Oscar a little bit. I'm sure Oscar wasn't pushing as hard as he could either.
No.
But on pure pace, they're super, super close. But it's just these little things are gradually pushing him further and further away from number one spot in the standings.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's putting that championship mortar in the gaps of his racecraft, right? And fixing it up. All right, next up, Mercedes, George Russell in P3, Kimi Antonelli down in P6. George salvaged a strong P3 finish despite challenging weekend. Really looked on his back foot most of the weekend compared to Kimi Antonelli. Kimi had that pole position for sprint, P3 qualifying for the race. George struggled. Started down in P5, lost a position early on, struggled with grip in the car, but Mercedes had that strategic pit stop, Paul, during the virtual safety car, basically gained him 10 seconds or more on that pit stop, allowed him to come out, undercut Max Verstappen, stay in P3, and Max was reeling him in, but couldn't catch him. Capitalized on those fresh tires when he came out. Closing stages, they looked good, secured the podium, showed his ability to adapt to the car's limitations, what he was going through. All the talk after Saturday's sprint qualifying was Kimi. All the talk. The entire paddock was talking about Kimi, rightfully so. But George seized the reins, pulled him hard, and made a podium finish out of it. So it was a good weekend for him.
No, it was, and this is what he's been doing all year.
Yeah.
Right, he's making the most of whatever situation is there. I mean, Kimi had some bad luck. They pitted him early.
Yeah.
And the strategy worked for him, honestly. Starting him on the hard, so it's like, that's what it gives you. It gives you more options, and you can go a little longer, and if there is a yellow, full course yellow, whatever, then you can reap the rewards, and that's ultimately what the strategy call from the team worked out great, and George executed it too, even though, probably under a little pressure from Max near the end there, but he seemed to be pretty confident he could handle him. It's a funny dynamic here with Russell and Antonelli. I think Toto's saying, it's like he's little brother or his protege. It's like, not really, because he's gunning for your seat.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's got a seat alongside you, but he's gunning for a superior place on the team, And so George knows that very, very well also.
Yeah, I think George knows pretty well what the sentiment is, but yeah. But I think he answered this weekend.
Yeah.
So
I said it matters where you finish.
Yeah.
That it matters making the most of what you've given that day.
Yeah,
he does it,
and that's just it. When you've got that opportunity, you got to execute, and he's been doing that all season long. He really has. Kimi Antonelli, incredible weekend for this guy. 18 years old. It's shocking how fast he is, and I will say he got mugged in the sprint. Didn't work out for him quite as well in the race, starting P3, but starting to show strong skill levels here. He was overtaken by Piastri, and Oscar Paul took time. Oscar even noted that Antonelli's sportsmanlike approach in not trying to overly defend, the fact that he struggled with the McLaren's pace and recognized, in Oscar's words, he identified that he's not really in the race with us. So making it overly complicated for him or me was a real heads-up move and a wise move from an 18-year-old to not make it difficult for Oscar because he knew it wasn't his race. Struggled to match McLaren's pace as the race progressed, and then tire wear hampered his ability to challenge for the podium. Despite all that, the result, his clean racecraft, strategic yielding for faster cars, and as I just mentioned, is it really any wonder that Mercedes chose to give him this seat? And as I mentioned, looking at his junior career, his strike rate is astronomical. He's an incredible talent, and certainly one that Mercedes has got to be happy about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we didn't know a lot about him, and the build-up to him jumping from F2. At least I didn't. But he's proved to be an extremely positive choice for these guys. And they knew what they were getting. We just didn't.
Right.
But still, you don't know till you know. So until he was in a Formula One race, you don't know how he's going to behave. But he's not, I wouldn't say flawlessly, but he's showing way more maturity and alongside a lot of speed.
Yeah.
From the get-go. So it's all the arrows point to up for Kimi Antonelli. I mean, Mercedes got to be super happy and lock him into a long-term contract because he's a superstar already and obviously a future championship hunter as well. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Great race for him. Red Bull, Max Verstappen in P4. The new father, he had just he became a father just ahead of the race of a baby girl. Lily is her name. So the new father, Max, had a frustrating race, slipping from pole to P4. Bit of an off day for him. Led initially, fending off Norris at the start, but at that turn one skirmish with Norris, they deemed it a racing incident. There was investigation, but no penalties were given. In my mind, Paul, I felt like if you were going to give Max a penalty for that on Sunday, then you should have given Oscar a penalty for it on Saturday. The stewards didn't do anything. Piastri overtook him pretty decisively with that move we talked about earlier, and Norris followed suit by lap 18, exposing Red Bull's serious deficit to the McLaren's overall pace. Verstappen struggled to regain positions with the car lacking that outright speed to challenge the leaders. It's a fear that Red Bull has to have about, these kind of tracks, these kind of temps, this is the pace deficit that we've got to McLaren. That's a major issue. I kind of felt like at the end of the race, or during the race, or at the end of the race, they lodged a formal complaint against George Russell's yellow flag incident or behavior, saying he didn't slow down enough, trying to get that disqualified or get a 10-second penalty for George to get Max on the podium. I haven't seen any result of that, but it's not looking good for Red Bull.
It doesn't look good for Red Bull or anybody else, quite honestly.
No,
but,
they're not alone.
Yeah, as I said, the max factor is a big one. So that car probably has no right to be fighting for the podium right now.
Yeah.
As we see when he compare him to his teammate and teammates that have come before.
Yeah.
But Max did a phenomenal qualifying lap and used all his skill to hold off Oscar and then also to try and hold off Lando. But the pace deficit is just too great for him even to do.
Yeah.
And I think he's hoping just to stay in the hunt and hoping the team can turn something around to give him a shot at something. And there's going to be races where the Red Bull is going to be equal to the McLaren.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be.
Not so much.
Yeah, I think you will see track-specific performances for sure. From the Red Bull. Yuki Tsunoda down in P10. Yuki clinched P10, securing a crucial point for him, and a very tightly contested midfield, by the way. A lot of battles going on back there. To his credit, though, Paul, he did speed in the pit lane, got a 5-second penalty, then put the hustle on and pulled out a 5-second lead over Hadjar to retain the 10th P10 and final point. So good for him. Max had an upgraded floor on his car. Yuki did not. Still finished up in P10. So a better result for Yuki on balance.
Yeah, on balance, it's a better result than Max's other teammates have been able to achieve of late. So he's doing okay. And I think the car just isn't super fantastic, and so it's maybe the third, fourth best car out there. So Yuki's doing all right. I got one thing to say about Yuki is his interviews are getting really good.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen any of them.
Yeah,
it's like when he came to Formula One, he couldn't speak a word, and I think he's actually the way he's speaking in the interviews, his eloquency and his and the topic and how he explains things is actually very nice. So I'm going to give Yuki a thumbs up for, because God knows we couldn't do the reverse, right?
No,
I could go to Japan and start speaking that way. So I think it's part of the evolution of Yuki. So hopefully, it seems like he's calmed down a little bit because he's where he always wanted to be. But I think in the interviews, I think he's showing a new tide of maturity as well.
Yeah. Kudos to him. I agree with you. I think he's doing a great job. English isn't his native language. My gosh, if we went to Japan, konnichiwa, and then I'm gone.
Exactly.
So it's like, that wouldn't happen. So he's doing really well, and I agree with you. It seems like he's settled a little bit. I think it's one thing to be in the RB, knowing you want to get to the Red Bull, feeling you can be at Red Bull. You've got the chops to make it in the big team. You should be in the big team. He'd been at RB for several years. And by golly, this is my time, and I can go in there and I can mix it up with Max and blah, blah, blah. And then every driver that gets there goes, whoa. Okay. I was wrong about that whole thing, and now it's just clinging to my ride, and I hope Helmut Marko doesn't fire me.
Yeah.
But I think that's a humbling experience for anyone that gets the privilege of driving at Red Bull. I think that's pretty humbling.
Yeah, I mean, he's where the best position he can be now, right? He's not like Mercedes or McLaren are gonna jump on him, so he's achieved where his end goal should be. Now
he's at the zenith.
So now he just needs to hope that the Red Bulls can turn that car around for him.
Yeah, for sure. Williams, talking about turning a car around.
Woo!
Man, we're talking about Williams this early in the review. Yes, we are. Carlos Sainz P9, Alex Albon P5. Carlos delivered a strong performance, finishing in the top 10, securing valuable points for Williams, but he was pretty frustrated. Frustrated with the team's miscalculation, leaving him to start on used tires. Not happy about that. Started P6, had a stellar qualifying, battled with his teammate Alex Albon, had a little bit of a clash with him at the opening, overtaking him in P6 with a clean move, and then the two of them swapped positions multiple times or several times during the race. They collided on lap 1, causing damage to Carlos's floor that he said really impacted him for the rest of the race. He was only going to go backwards. But still, consistent pace despite the damage, capitalizing on Williams' competitive setup for this weekend, held that position in the tight midfield. Then he had that last lap clash with Lewis Hamilton that he was not happy with. Interesting, because he said, whoa, no, he changed the line. He squeezed me, and everybody's like, oh, not Lewis. But Anthony Davidson, after the race, did a side-by-side, clearly showing Lewis taking a completely different line into that turn to cut off Carlos as he was coming along, which you would do. I mean,
that's what you do.
That's what a champion does. Good for Lewis.
Last lap, what everyone should do is last lap of a race. What are you going to do? It's like, no, you go first. No. You change your line. You change your braking zone. You move around. You do whatever you can to keep the position.
Of course. So kudos for Lewis for slamming the door on him and making that happen. So, If he
didn't, I would be very disappointed.
Yeah. He was frustrated this weekend. Had a radio. It was kind of ambiguous about what he was talking about. He said, I don't go racing like this. I'm losing confidence in everything. I don't know if he was talking about confidence that the FIA are going to make the call on Lewis or confidence in the team. It's hard to read. But he was not happy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't hear that, but he's got to enjoy fighting it with Lewis, who's driving his car.
Yeah,
that's got to be good. I mean, he should be happy with that. I mean,
he should.
No one had those expectations for Williams this year. I mean, you're hopeful, but be able to actually literally go toe to toe with the Ferraris, Carlos. I mean, come on, man. And his teammate and the car actually beat the other two beat both Ferraris. So
that's right.
You're in a good position. Hey, we all have an off day or an off week, or maybe get affected by something. I don't know what his issue is, but I thought both drivers and the car and the team performed really, really well, really strong. So he should be happy and not frustrated coming out of this race, even though he didn't get maybe the result he got.
Yeah, I agree. I think for Williams, there's no way he signed that contract last year to join Williams thinking that he'd be running in amongst the Ferraris.
No.
I don't think there's any way he thought they were going to progress that much this season, but they have. Alex Albon, P5. Albon's strong qualifying laid the foundation really for his race, his consistency, consistent pace, capitalize on that midfield advantage they have in the pace. It's certainly in this setup at this track. Despite losing the position to Sainz early on, Albon said that he had a great rhythm going at this track, which I think is interesting because I always think this track would be tough to get a rhythm. So that was impressive. His performance really contributed to a very successful weekend, although team boss James Vowles said, JV said that he is a bit of a ragged weekend, if you consider the practice where they were, the sprint quality, the sprint, there were some issues, and then, with Carlos in the race, but it's a ragged weekend, but they have a firm grasp on P5 and the constructors' titles over Haas, and that's a terrific place to be for Williams, who basically ran this entire race and finished P5, P9 on merit, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great run by Albon, great run by the team.
Yeah.
I get why the team, you're never going to be satisfied till you're winning. I mean, James Vowles has won a lot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you get. If it's a great run for what you have, it's still not satisfying because you always want more. If you don't have that hunger, then you would be racing, honestly. So he looks for perfection in himself and the team and the drivers, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So it wasn't a perfect weekend, no, but it was a very successful weekend, and they just need to keep keeping on with how they're approaching it and how they're putting that car out on the track.
Yeah, totally agree. Couldn't be happier for this team. I really couldn't.
Yeah,
JV is doing a fantastic job. That whole team is. All the men and women. Williams just doing an amazing job, and I couldn't be happier for him. Not so much for my team, Ferrari. Charles Leclerc, P7, Lewis Hamilton, P8. Leclerc, tough weekend, as did his teammate Lewis Hamilton. A race defined by strategic complexity, Paul. I'm trying to be nice. And internal tensions. I'm trying to be pleasant here. Ferrari opted to swap their drivers' positions to allow Hamilton on fresher medium tires to chase Antonelli, but much to Lewis's frustration, it took too long to make that call in his mind, and the strategy failed to yield any results. By the time Lewis did get around, he didn't really make any inroads on Antonelli. So, having that situation, Leclerc's back on the horn, calling and saying, "Hey, now my tires are coming coming on song, and I'm just tearing up my tires behind Lewis." So the team says, "Oh, okay, well, let's swap them back." So they swapped, restored Leclerc's position. He couldn't close the gap to Antonelli due to tire degradation. I don't know. You can read a lot into, Lewis is like, when they said, "All right, well, Carlos is behind you," he goes, "Do you want me to let him through too?"
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, it was awesome. And he goes, "Why don't you have a tea while you're at it?" The whole "we'll come back to you" on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a swift kick in the rear end from Lewis for a team who probably deserves it, given the history they've had with this "we'll get back to you. What do you think you should do, Charles?" That kind of thing. It's kind of like, guys, come on, you're a professional Formula One team. Let's, and I think Lewis was basically kicking them right in the crotch, if I'm honest. A lot has been made about that, and even Charles's frustration on the radio and all that. Look, I don't think Charles has anything against Lewis. I don't think Lewis has anything against Charles. I think the reality is both drivers are very upset with the overall team's performance and the car's performance, their strategy, the delays in making effective, quick, succinct, concise strategy calls. They're both frustrated.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. Rightfully so. They're frustrated the car isn't great, but they're still trying to make the best of it. And what I've always said is if the team's not doing great, then the drivers really have to come together and the team to work together to try and get both cars, whatever they need to do, further forward in the placings. And they did everything but that here. These are things you have discussions in the team meetings. You have these discussions in team plans before you get to the race weekend. And you certainly don't try and make decisions from the hip while they're always running close together. You can see what's going to come about in 2 or 3 laps. You can see Lewis is coming. You don't wait for Lewis to get there to prove that he's quick enough to make that decision. No, you say, "Hey, Lewis is on a different tire strategy. Just let him by as soon as he gets there, and let's see what he can do, and then maybe he can drag you along as well." Right. That's what they should have done. They should have had foresight to see what was going to transpose in 2-3 times laps, rather than at that moment, Lewis is behind there. He's got the softer tire. If he stays behind Charles too long, the gift he's been given with that softer tire is gone already. And so by the time they made their decision, the edge was off the tires. Lewis couldn't make any ground, so that's why Charles then, was able to kind of stay with him. But it shouldn't have happened, because he should have literally been come and gone the instant he was behind Charles. And that's what the team should be working towards. And they're the discussions that you have with the drivers before you get to a race. Hey, in this scenario, this is what we're going to do. We're struggling a bit with the car. We're going to try and do this. They knew they were running alternate strategy on the tires before the start of the race. So they should already have this scenario in their heads and have that decision made in their heads, rather than running around and asking the drivers what they think. They shouldn't even be in the conversation.
No.
Right? The team is dictating what the drivers do, and they're running the campaign. They need everything. The drivers are literally out there just doing their job. Right. So, Ferrari have done a lot of questioning the drivers. What do you think we should do? And that is not the correct thing. You can ask what the condition the tire is in, but do not ask the driver what the strategy should be, because they don't have all the details anyway. So, I don't know. I think it was a big miss by Ferrari, and I can understand Lewis's comments. He's trying to make a point, and Charles also. And even, I heard one of the things where Charles said, "Well, let's not switch positions again. We're just going to both lose out again." And he was absolutely right. Yeah. Charles said, "Well, I'll just wait here till hopefully we can catch Antonelli." But they never got that chance because they swapped back again. They're losing a second going through that process, and that second is crucial. Yeah, it is. You're spot on, Paul. When you run split strategies, you certainly would have had these conversations before the race. You certainly should have. And then their comment, I don't know if it was a throwaway comment, but when Lewis radioed and they said, "Well, we want to keep Charles in the DRS."
And he was like, "Oh, come on, guys," And I was like, "That is such a weird. Are you suggesting that you're not going to swap him because you might piss off Charles?
Yeah.
Is that what that is implying? I mean, and then I go back to having been a Ferrari fan my whole life. I go back to what happened to the notion that this is Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
They don't give a damn about the drivers. It's all about Ferrari, right?
Right.
They put the best drivers they can get in there, and they don't, as far as driving for themselves and their own glory, Enzo couldn't care less. You drive for Ferrari. It's all about Ferrari. Always has been when Luca de Montezemolo was in charge. Even back when Mattia Binotto was there, it was all about Ferrari. I don't know if Fred has changed things.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden they're worried about making Charles mad or Lewis mad or whatever. No, it should be exactly what you said, Paul.
Yeah.
As soon as the discussion before the race is, Charles should have gotten that car, and he should have known before the lights went green that if Lewis catches up to me on mediums, I'm going to immediately let him through because he's faster, and we'll see if he can drag me along with him or whatever.
Right.
But that's the strategy, and there should be no discussion.
There shouldn't, and the drivers would appreciate
the clarity.
Those kind of the clarity.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's also frustrating. If you don't know what your job is, how can I be called out for not doing it right?
Right. I mean, I understand Charles doesn't want to hand a position to Lewis, but when you're on split strategies, that's the way it goes,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was, I kind of feel like last year they solved some of that strategy stuff, but this smacked of a couple of years ago when they were asking Charles what they should do. It was weird. Let's see. Where are we? We're down to the Racing Bulls. Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. Is that what they're called now?
I don't know. Are they? I thought the Racing Bulls. I thought they dropped the V-carb. Did they?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Racing Bulls. Isaac Hadjar, P11, Liam Lawson, DNF. Isaac drove it, okay, he wasn't in the points, but he drove a pretty impressive race, finishing, 10th behind Yuki in P10. Yuki pulled out that gap, that 5-second gap, which unfortunately would have given Isaac P10 in the point, but Yuki did a great job, pulled out 5 seconds, and my hunch is maybe there was a phone call from Red Bull to the Racing Bulls.
A little tap on the shoulder.
Yeah. Hey, oi.
Let's go to map 4. Map 4. Isaac.
Yeah.
Map 4, are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, map 4.
Map 4. Slow it down, buddy. Yeah, I'm sure there was a little a little Marcoing going on there, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, he didn't get the P10. Yuki did. Started in P11, missed out on Q3 by a mere 200ths of a second. Really had some good pace. Not to run at the sharp end, but good pace. Acquitted himself well. Closed that gap to Tsunoda. That's why I was thinking maybe there was a phone call, because he was closing the gap.
Right.
And I think he was doing a great job. And so, hard to fault Isaac. I just, he's going from strength to strength, race to race.
Yeah.
I just couldn't be happier for the young man. I think he's doing a great job and making it difficult for other rookies, who aren't shining.
He definitely is. Yeah, he's definitely the prime of the rookies, apart from Antonelli, of course.
Yeah.
Different car, different situation.
Yep.
But he's doing an exceptional job, making the most of the car that he has, and he's getting miles in now, right? There was that issue at the first race, that was unfortunate, but since then, I think he's been doing a great job, showing good pace and not making big mistakes. Shows that he can race against people. So solid job. And unfortunately for his teammate, it's not looking good. He makes his teammate look average, right?
Yeah.
That's definitely not what you want to be if you're his teammate.
And speaking of that incident, it's I tweeted to him. I said, "See, Isaac, even Charles Leclerc can crash on the formation lap like he did on the sprint race."
Yeah, right.
But it's kind of like one of those things that Charles Leclerc, I thought he got over those unforced errors like that, but to ball it up in the wall on a formation lap, the sprint was not good.
No,
for Charles, that was not good. Yes, talking of Isaac's teammate, Liam Lawson, DNF. Liam raced, his race ended prematurely lap 1 due to collision with Jack Doohan. Unfortunate. I thought he had he had a P7 in the sprint. Out-qualified Isaac. Looked set to have a decent weekend. The incident was investigated. No penalties were handed out. Sort of a lap 1 incident. Disappointing conclusion to the weekend that I kind of felt like he looked a little more competitive this weekend than he has so far. Despite the early exit, Red Bull's confidence in their car speed suggests that Lawson had the potential to fight for points, just like Isaac did. Had he had made the most of that, not had that collision. But like Lando, it would have been better to check up a little bit and play the long game, knowing you had the pace maybe. I don't know. That's hindsight. It's easy to say. But on the flip side, I don't know. A lot of people have parsed out that crash. It was 3-1 on the first lap into turn 1. I think it's difficult to lay 100% blame on Jack or Liam or anyone else or the Alpine. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a low percentage move to go in between two cars into a very tight right-hand turn.
Yep.
And the closer you got to the corner, the tighter it was going to be, certainly for Doohan. He literally couldn't turn the wheel any more than he already did to get out of the way. So
you have to have a lot of trust in the other two drivers, don't you?
You do, and some things aren't actually changeable at that moment. Once you stuck your nose in there, there's literally nothing anybody can do to get out of that situation. It could have turned out okay, didn't turn out okay. All part of the pressure of trying to get results.
You get the impression that Liam is it a case of so much pressure that you're trying to over deliver and making mistakes and driving beyond what the car can actually handle?
Yeah, I mean, he's not driving beyond the car, but he's trying to make big gains in a place where it's very, very difficult to.
Yeah.
Certainly in the midfield, a lot of that work has to be done in qualifying. You just can't make up 4 places in a group of superstar Formula One drivers, I don't think, in one turn.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always run those decisions through your head of, well, maybe if he'd stayed behind and the crash would have happened in front of him, he would have dove inside. Sure, probably would have happened. I personally don't. Going in 3 people side by side, being the middle car, usually never turns out well.
Yeah, agreed. Let's see. Haas, Esteban Ocon, P12, Ollie Behrman, a DNF. Esteban finished P12, missed out on the points, but had a little bit of a strategic misstep with the virtual safety car. Started in the midfield, held his own early on, fending off Hamilton. I thought that was an interesting battle. Hamilton getting stuck behind a Ferrari customer car. That wasn't good. Showing some good defensive skills from Esteban. He's not an easy chap to pass.
No.
And I think Lewis kind of saw the working into that. However, poorly timed pit stop allowed Hadjar to undercut him, and then Ocon struggled with tire wear in that second stint, unable to overcome the RBs. He sunk down to P12. Missed opportunity, kind of compounded by Tsunoda's earlier penalty, which could have opened the door to P10, but he wasn't able to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, the car wasn't super duper this weekend, so if they were going to get in the top 10, it had to be with a bit of luck, and he didn't get any.
Get any, yeah. And then Ollie, not a lot to talk about here. Race ended with a PU failure. Looked, another rookie that I think's doing really well, given the equipment he's got. I think he's doing a pretty good job this year. This weekend looked to be a little better for him, and then he got in the race and had that PU failure with fire coming out of the tailpipe. Was not a good sign. Capped off pretty much a challenging weekend for him and Esteban, and really the team in a whole. Didn't have the pace, and they lost ground to Williams in that Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, definitely wasn't any pace in Behrman. I mean, he qualified in the back row.
Yeah,
struggling the whole weekend. Could be because the engine was about to let go, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they try and stretch these engines 5 races, which is crazy to me. And So they tried to make it, but I think maybe the car, maybe the engine was a little soft by that point, so he didn't have the performance there. And then in the end, put it out of his own misery by exploding.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Alpine Pierre Gasly, P13, Jack doing a DNF. Pierre finished P13, couldn't break into the points despite that setback. He had that disrupted sprint qualifying that left him, and he started well back in the pit lane. Kept his race clean, avoided a lot of the incidents, made some steady progress up through the field. Pretty quiet race for him, but just Alpine lacked outright pace, period. No ability to challenge for any higher positions than that. Finished outside the points in P13.
Yeah, that's going to be one he wants to forget.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, definitely, when the Alpine can perform, Gasly's right there. But they qualified fourth just a couple of races ago.
Yeah.
But this definitely wasn't a track that suited their car.
Yeah.
And so I can't fault Gasly for getting a bad position. I think it's just a car thing.
No, I do too. If the car, to your point, Pierre is a bellwether. If the car's hooked up well at a specific track, it'll deliver. And Pierre will deliver it. I think he's kind of a bellwether. He's a good driver. He's doing a great job when that car can perform. But when it can't, I think P13's probably about the max you could get out of it. Jack, tough weekend for him. Race ended early with that collision with Liam Lawson. Ultimately, Jack's boxed DNF with too much damage. It was investigated. No penalties given for anyone. Had a decent weekend going. Outperformed Pierre or outqualified him. I will say this about it. I was a little surprised. Now, I've seen the articles now come out today about the possibility that the team may put Colapinto in at Imola. But I'll be honest with you, before that news story that came out today, I saw a blurb about it on the socials on some, I will say, less than reputable website or person, and I'm not naming names. And I read that headline like on Friday or Thursday. It was not even a headline. It was just a post on social. I thought, that's interesting. And the whole thing gained a lot of weight for me when I heard his radio conversation with the team on Saturday.
Okay.
He was furious with the team on the radio. I mean, he was yelling at him. He's like, "Oh my gosh, come on, you guys! This is horrible." Completely aside of Jack that we have not heard at all. Right. Frustration. And I had to think that's not the radio calls we've heard from Jack in the first 5 races.
Yeah.
And I have to think that this has been going on this week, and I suspect he probably knows it.
Yeah.
Or he would have had a different radio message, I think. My hunch.
Sense. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough position to be in,
Yeah.
Liam Lawson took the heat off him for a bit, but it's come back on him. He needed a result. He did perform. He qualified Gasly, but in the end, the result is the result. And he's had crashes. This one, I don't think it was any fault of his, honestly. But the result is the result, and it makes it easier for them. And we know Briatore likes money, and we know Colapinto brings some, and Jack doesn't. So,
yeah, and it's also another thing that's tough for Jack, and I feel bad for him. I feel like it's kind of like I think I texted you. This is a wrong team at the wrong time for Jack.
Yeah,
and I feel bad for him. And do you remember the days where he used to say, well, he's a rookie. You're going to have to give him time. Even Max had the benefit of Red Bull saying, Max is young. He's 19, 20 years old. You got to give him time, and Lewis or pick a champion, you got to give him some time and blah, blah, blah. The way I think Jack now is in the series, the way that the way that Kimi Antonelli is performing, the way that Isaac Hadjar is performing, the way that Ollie Behrman has shown he can perform. I don't know that whole rookie give him time thing is as much as a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a very short period of time to evaluate, and everyone's chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
And if you've got a Colapinto who you've seen achieve some really good results the previous year, and he also comes with money, that helps, right?
Yeah.
And Jack was kind of like, we're giving him the seat because he's put in his hours. It seemed like when they introduced him, it was like, well, he deserves the place because he spent a couple of years as the reserve driver, blah blah blah. Not because we think he's ready and we're behind this guy. That's never been what Alpine have pushed on him.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that he would prove them wrong.
Me
and
too.
I don't think he's had the chance to.
Yeah.
I don't think he's an Antonelli by any means. But I also don't think he's actually given the chance to be the best Jack Doohan can be either.
No.
The way things have evolved, and it seems a little short, but
I agree.
Life is short. Formula One bosses are impatient.
Yeah, it's a tough world in F1. I don't. I feel bad for him. Yeah, if that happens, if I was Jack, I'd be on the phone to Cadillac. Hello, Cadillac.
Yeah.
Something. Anyway, Kick Sauber, Nico Hulkenberg, P14. Nico Sauber sole finisher, crossing the line in P14. Steady, unremarkable race, starting lower midfield, started in the hard compounds. Clean race, ran long on the hards, switched, gained some positions. Just overall lack of pace prevented him from really challenging him for anything more than I think than P14. I didn't detect that he did anything wrong. I just don't think he had the pace.
Yeah, I mean, he's driving the Kick Sauber. I don't know.
They're
like actually
Kick Sauber in the nuts.
Yeah, it's
Tough.
It's tough to be in that team.
It is.
It really
It's
is.
tough.
I think right now it's I think they actually did better than they normally do.
Right.
Team lost, but
Yeah.
boy, you're not going to do anything special in that
No,
car.
you're not. Yeah, tough being Jonathan Wheatley right now.
Yeah.
Let's see. His teammate, Gabriel Bortoleto, DNF. Gabriel retired lap 20. He switched to mediums to hards. Then he retired. I don't know. I think the reason, which may have been a fuel system issue, just added to the woes overall for Sauber for the weekend. He was running up in P13. So to his credit, I think both of them were running pretty well, contextually speaking.
Right.
Yes, but I think they were running pretty well. I maintain, and I know we're talking about Liam and we're talking about Jack and everything, and you could lump Gabriel in there and all that. I don't think you can yet. My hunch is we haven't seen the full measure of Gabriel Bortoleto yet.
Right.
That's my hunch.
Yeah, no, I agree, because your measuring stick is Nico Hulkenberg, right? And he actually did a really good job versus Nico in qualifying, etc. He did a really good qualifying lap. I think he does have more potential. Luckily, that team is not in a hurry to start switching drivers around, so he's got some time, right?
Right,
yeah.
right. Unless Jack calls him, and no. And then finally, Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, P15. Fernando endured a forgettable race, finishing P15 in a car plagued by balance issues and lack of pace, and started in the lower midfield, struggled to make any progress, and look, that spin he had didn't help matters, finishing down in P15. I think Alonso's like, it sucked, it's a terrible weekend, it's tough, we don't have the pace, we need to fix it.
yeah. How do you fix it? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's not great. Their only hope is saying, well, McLaren were lost a couple of years ago, and they're world champions now. So hopefully all this hardship and pain is all for the greater good. Let's just hope so.
Let's hope so.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Lance down to P16. Lance, same thing. Dismal day for him. Like Alonso, he was hampered by the car's lack of speed, poor balance, low grid positions where they started. Stroll's race was uneventful. No noticeable overtakes or battles to highlight or get excited about. The team struggle in Miami really exposed their midfield shortcomings. They really did, leaving Stroll with little to show for any effort he may have been doing in that car. So very difficult race weekend for them.
Very.
All right. Well, that's how they finished. Let's give away some awards before we back out of the podcast. The first award is always Move of the Race.
We'll do it live.
It's a shitbox.
Woo, move of the race, Paul. Who'd you have for move of the race?
Yeah, I've got Oscar on Max. I think this race wasn't super impacted by DRS.
Yep.
Luckily, it wasn't painful DRS, but to race against Max, you know, we could keep someone behind him all race long if he has a car to do it. But Oscar, very measured, and then when he went for it, he knew what to do, and he showed you how to park Max Verstappen. So it was very important.
I had Oscar on Max too.
Yeah.
First, you must master your fear, or fear will become your master.
Ooh. Did you just come up with that?
No.
That's impressive. No, I'm just kidding. I know.
So anyway.
May the 4th be with you, Tom.
Yeah, right.
Or the
5th. Let's see. It's Cinco de Mayo, Paul. Is it Taco Tuesday tonight?
Gotta be, man.
Gotta be taco.
Fish taco night.
Fish taco night. Good for you.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Next word is donkey of the race.
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What the hell?
Oh, Jesus.
All right, Paul. I think we had the same pick here too, didn't we?
Yeah. Your favorite team, Ferrari. Yeah. I think they mucked it up. Yeah. Left, right, and center in this
horrible.
one.
Horrible. Yeah. They deserved that swift kick in the crotch by Lewis. They really did.
They do. They
really did. Good on Lewis.
Sometimes, the old days, Lewis could be a bit petulant, childish, but he used his words nicely.
Yes,
well, should I say.
Yes.
Correctly,
yes. And then finally, drive of the race.
Yesterday, Lewis.
But if you don't.
You like my face? You like it?
Oh, yes, we like the pace. Who'd you give it to?
Yes, I give it to Alex Albon.
A good pick. A very good pick. Yeah, I'm impressed.
Finishing ahead of the Ferraris, just a solid race from lap 1 to the end.
Yeah.
Awesome job.
Great job by Alex. He did a fantastic job. I went with Oscar. Started down in 4th, measured, and forced the unforceable, the immovable object that is Max Verstappen, forced him into an air, made the pass, calculated, just cool, calm, collected, just, it's everything. I don't know. It's all the earmarks of a champion. I'm just saying.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Yeah. Just a fantastic drive. All right. Well, that's what we think about the Miami Grand Prix, but you let us know what you think about the Miami Grand Prix. You can do so by going to our website, thepartforme.com. Just share your opinions with decorum and civility as always. And if you like the podcast, go over to your favorite podcast player. Give us some love. Give us a good rating over there. A huge, huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, because we could not and would not do this podcast without you. And if you guys want some swag, you can go get some Park From A t-shirts, coffee mugs, and those kind of things.
Some good ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the Spa one.
Yeah, the Spa one.
It's practically got 3 things, my favorite things: Formula 1, Spa, and beer.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a nice combo.
Yeah, exactly. I made one for the British too, with the British crown. So I made that too. So you'd look good in that one, Paul.
I would.
It's got the Union Jack on it, so it's gonna be good. Anyway, but that's you can pick up some swag. You can go to our website and it'll say merch there, and you can go pick up some merch. And we will be back next week. And yes, it's my understanding Grace did make it out of Spain. Even with the power outage, I think her and her betrothed rented a small dinghy and rowed home across the Atlantic.
They just made it.
Yeah. So that's good. But anyway, we will be back next week, and then Paul, in a fortnight, we're going to talk about the Imola, the Grand Prix at Imola. But we got a triple header again.
Wow. Jesus, you're working me hard, man.
I am working you hard. I know. We got a triple header. We've got 3 races on the trot, so a lot can happen.
I got a double header myself.
Yeah, when is your double header?
Coming up.
Yeah.
Laguna this weekend, Sebring the weekend after. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's perfect. All right.
It is.
We'll be back next week to do it all over again. Until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camera, saying so long. Is this going to play, Paul?
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.